Hey, it's Roy Newgate again, and today I wanted to talk about a topic of discussion that has been making the rounds on the Twitter timeline in the past week, and that is who would win in a fight between Zoro and Katakuri. Before I get into my thoughts on the subject, if you are a returning viewer or if you just generally enjoy One Piece content like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below to stay posted on all of my video releases. Now let's get right into it. Katakuri is one of the most highly touted Yonko commanders, and as we all know, the strongest Big Mom pirate subordinate. Many people hold him in especially high regard because of his ability to see moments into the future by way of his advanced observation haki, which to some renders him somewhat invincible, but as we all should know, that is not at all the case because there are ways to counter his skill set. Now, when it comes to how a battle between him and Zoro would turn out, I firmly believe that a Zoro win in this instance is unquestionable, especially given where we are in the story. I don't think this should be seen as an absurdity on any basis. I feel like many people cling on to the idea that since Luffy struggles so much against a person of his caliber, that every other character has to follow the same hurdle in order to reach and surpass that level. But the fact of the matter is, current Zoro is a lot stronger than Luffy was in Whole Cake Island. I know for some that may be a bit of a controversial take as well, but they are both in this fight against the Emperors of the Sea and are poised to be the absolute biggest contributors. And no, it's not a case where Zoro is one or two tiers below Luffy, but is still somehow ended up on the roof, doing what he's doing. He's up there because he is powerful enough to put up as much work as his captain, despite not having a solo fight against the commander prior to this. There is a lot I want to go over and a lot of details I think people overlook when it comes to this debate. Now, the one element of this discussion of Zoro and Katakuri that I have an issue with the most is the fact that people insist Zoro cannot even hit Katakuri because of future sight. There was a point in time that people were arguing he was outclassed in every category, including armament haki, and he would have to bloom against King to even reach that level. But as the arc has worn on, it's become common knowledge that Zoro already possesses armament mastery superior to Katakuri. And we've reached a point where the relevance of this advantage has been consistently downplayed because now the argument is focused squarely over Zoro's attack speed, as some would insist he isn't fast enough to even land a single hit. I think the problem is people are too focused on travel speed, trying to parallel how Luffy attacks with how Zoro does it. I think also people tend to be so enamored by Luffy's power-ups, such as Snake Man, that they think that Zoro has to possess the same exact thing to be able to replicate the speed of his ability. If that were the case though, you'd see swordsmen like Shanks, Mihawk, and Odin needing to have transformations to fight at this speed, but they don't. They simply don't need it. They have speed and haki attributes that allow them to fight at this level. There are a bevy of examples on why the speed of Zoro's slashes are not to be underestimated. The first of which would be this instance in which Zoro sent an attack at Hawkins at the very beginning of Wano. Now, the lethality is one thing because under normal circumstances it would have killed Hawkins in one blow. But it was also so fast that even the Future Sight and Snake Man user in Luffy was shocked. And Hawkins himself is by no means slow. In fact, he was able to react to shambles by law and block in time before getting cut. But in the case of Zoro, he was not able to tell what happened before it was too late. And it would be silly to think that he just willingly sacrificed a life for no reason. Another example of Zoro's attack speed within the arc would be in chapter 997 when he fired a slash at Queen while Queen was attempting to take out Chopper and Nappa with his gun. The impressive thing about this is the distance between the two and how Zoro was still able to connect on the attack before Queen was even able to take in what happened to the platform he was on and his weapon. And it's not like it was a sneak attack of any sort. Queen was focused squarely on his targets on the bottom floor and just simply could not react in time. I said earlier that travel speed isn't the focus when it comes to Zoro's attacks, but this aspect of Zoro's ability is often overlooked as well. His travel speed feats are almost always with one sword, as that's him at his absolute fastest. Some people tend to forget just how fast he moves with the Itoryu style, like when he speed blitzed Kuma in Thriller Bark. In chapter 997, we also see him move at such an insane speed that he completed his attack on a pool before Drake could even connect on his attack. But to go even further, in chapter 1001, Zoro's travel speed was highlighted again when he saved Luffy from Big Mom before Luffy even realized that Big Mom was attacking, and he was coming from quite some distance away in a very short period of time. In chapter 1003, we have another instance of Zoro moving fast enough to save Luffy from a full powered attack from Big Mom, and these two cases highlight both Zoro's travel and reaction speed against the Yonko. But even if you don't want to acknowledge all of that, it should already be common knowledge that a swordsman's reaction speed should be insanely high. They fight battles in which their life can end with one single stroke of the sword, so of course they have to have the ability to continuously react fast enough to avoid getting killed. And as we all know, these Yonko are not slow by any measure. In fact, Kaido himself was able to speed blitz Luffy while Luffy was using Future Sight, and Luffy remarked that not even seeing the future was enough to completely evade this attack from Kaido. Now, you may say there's a difference between Katakuri using Future Sight and Luffy, but is there really? I don't think so. I think at this point Luffy is able to match Katakuri's mastery and perhaps even surpass it. If we look back at Luffy versus Katakuri, we notice that Katakuri begins to express a sense of caution when he realizes Luffy was getting closer and closer to matching his Future Sight as the battle wore on. He initially remarked that although infrequent, he was beginning to see the same future as him. And then later on, after thinking about the progress that Luffy was making, he said to himself that he has to eliminate him soon before the unthinkable happens. This would lead me to believe that Katakuri thought Luffy would be able to match him in this battle alone. And now, several weeks have passed since then, so it would be silly to think Luffy's usage of Future Sight is at all inferior to Katakuri's. So all things considered, I don't think Zoro should have a problem with this aspect of his ability given his own speed attributes. Now, I've spent a lot of time discussing speed, but of course there are other elements to this battle that need to be acknowledged as well. And one of those is durability. When comparing these two, I don't think much of anyone will question Zoro's superiority. This of course has to do with how much Zoro trains his body and the beatings he takes to reach this level. Luffy and Zoro are both known for their ability to endure a beating and keep fighting at an insanely high level despite the punishment that they're receiving. And in this fight in particular, Katakuri expresses frustration with how Luffy would not go down and asks why the light in his eyes doesn't go out. And with this, I'd have to mention how Nami herself stated that Zoro was the toughest man on the crew. In the same arc, Zoro was able to keep fighting as if nothing happened after taking on multiple full power hits from oars, so if you were to put him in a fight against Katakuri, then you can imagine how well he'd take on any damage inflicted on him. Now, when it comes to Katakuri's own durability, I think he lacks greatly in this department. Zoro once said, you get stronger with the more damage you take, and in Katakuri's case, he mentions he hasn't even been hit in years, so his reliance on Future Sight has greatly limited his ability to advance in this area. It may perhaps even be his greatest weakness. So if it were to come down to who can endure longer, I don't think this works in Katakuri's favor at all, because his ability to use observation Haki would run out as well, trying to avoid Zoro's attacks. And we have already seen how he fares without it when he took damage from base Luffy. So the over-dependence on observation Haki has already proven to be to Katakuri's detriment in multiple areas. There's also the case of attack power, which I mentioned earlier, has recently been downplayed for the reasons I've mentioned. Katakuri outclassed Luffy in armament Haki in their fight, and so even when Luffy was using Snake Man, the damage he took on was minimized due to his superior Haki when defending and also while he was attacking. But this of course would not be something he can rely on in the fight against Zoro. Zoro would overpower him and break his armament defenses. Zoro has already broken Kaido's scales with the Dragon Twister, so just imagine what would happen to Katakuri if he were to attempt to defend against the same attack. I don't think anyone would make the claim that Katakuri's armament is stronger than Kaido's own durability, so this says a lot. There are also a few other things that Zoro does better than Luffy that will give him an edge on Katakuri. Now, I already know if you even dare say something like this, people tend to get triggered because they think Luffy has to be top one in everything that he does, or he's not allowed to be the captain or whatever. But the first of these is the fact that Zoro's offense is more efficient. He doesn't have to land a million slashes to come out on top. His individual sword slashes are more potent and more lethal than Luffy's punches, so if he lands the right attack, then this battle could be over in 1 or 2 moves. That minimizes the level of fatigue that he would have to take on, as well as the length of the battle. It would not last anywhere near the 11 hours that it took Luffy vs Katakuri to conclude. There's also the fact that Zoro excels in fighting long range and close range. He can send out slashes at incredible speed, which makes it so that he doesn't put his own body in harm's way and isn't at as much risk of taking damage like Luffy whenever he reaches out to attack. And you can even imagine how an attack like the Dragon Twister will cover an area wide enough to the point Katakuri can't simply reform and maneuver his body to avoid taking damage. This attack was strong enough to overpower Kaido's variation of the same attack, so that should say a lot on its own. And this isn't even Zoro's full offensive skill set. He has a lot of techniques and maneuvers to use against Katakuri that will prove very difficult to overcome. We have yet to even see the limits of his power as well, so if the argument for Zoro to win against Katakuri is this weighted, then just imagine once we see what else he has in his bag as the fight against the Emperors wears on. We haven't even seen Ashura. This is one thing I think people would like to forget exists as well, but if you factor this in, then it's increasingly hard for me to understand why it's hard to think that Zoro can convincingly win against Katakuri. I've given a lot of context when it comes to speed, attack power, armament, and durability, and even still I've left out a lot of things that would help bolster this argument for Zoro. I think the biggest issue is that people tend to underrate the power of plot progression. We see how much plot played in advancing the power of the Straw Hats back in Enies lobby. So, taking that into account and talking about how much more powerful Zoro is now than at the beginning of Wano, it's important to consider that he had much more time to train and get stronger to reach his current level than he did in Eni's lobby. And of course, he didn't spend that time just to get 10 or 20% stronger. Luffy, when fighting Katakuri, didn't have any time at all to train, and the fight was still close. Just imagine how well he would have done if given an entire 2 weeks to prepare for the fight. I think I've covered all the aspects of this matchup that I would like to, and so I'll end the video here. But if I left out anything, or if there's any part of the video that you would like to discuss, then feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts are. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like the video as well.